Hi folks, Tim Sundles here. Thanks for tuning in. Kim is filming me. This is the day after our buffalo charge, and Kim and I went out to do some culling today, and Kim wouldn't hike in the trees. She won't go anywhere where she can't see everything. So I may have lost a hiking partner over that buffalo attack. I want to talk to you today about something there's a lot of misunderstanding about in the shooting industry. If you haven't heard of SAMMI, it's an acronym. It stands for Sporting Arms Ammunition Manufacturers Institute. SAMMI is a regulatory industry that standardizes dimensions, pressures, all kinds of things for guns and ammo, so that if you buy a Colt or a Sig Sauer or a Springfield, the chamber dimensions are within a certain tolerance. Everything, the barrel dimensions internally are within a certain tolerance. Everything's within a certain tolerance, and so is the ammo, so that the ammo will function in these guns. And I'm not, and I want to make this clear, I'm not bad-mouthing SAMMI, okay? But anytime you put an organization together, I don't care if it's the fire department, I don't care if it's the ladies basket weaving association. When you put an agency together and they start making rules, they get a life of their own and they forget reality. They forget how things are in the real world. Now, SAMMI has been around for nearly 100 years in one form or another, but I want to take you through the little bit of the history of SAMMI from, say, the 1950s. Smith & Wesson and Ruger were in a race to bring out the 44 mag handgun cartridge, and I think Smith & Wesson beat Ruger to the punch. Maybe it was Ruger that beat Smith & Wesson, I don't know, but it was by less than a year. One of them came out first. Well, SAMMI set the pressure standards for the 44 mag. Didn't cause much of a problem with the Ruger revolvers because they're single action with a solid frame, etc., etc. But in the Smith & Wesson, which doesn't have a solid frame because you have a swing out cylinder. So the frame isn't solid if you're going to have a swing out cylinder. It beat the Smith & Wessons to pieces. The early Remington ammo was way too hot for the Smith & Wessons. And that's the kind of mistake that SAMMI has made over and over and over. I'm still not bashing SAMMI because we need standardization in dimensions and pressures so that ammo made anywhere will work in guns made anywhere. I mean, you really need that. But it has been far less than a perfect attempt for SAMMI to get this done. So let me go over a couple of instances for you that have to do with buffalo bore ammo. We don't belong to SAMMI at Buffalo Bore. We could join anytime, but as soon as we did that, we would have to comply with everything SAMMI says. And let me give you a prime example of the problem with that. When the 10mm cartridge was first designed, it was designed with a max of a 200 grain bullet. Well, in the 300 different products we make at Buffalo Bore, our top seller is a 10mm with a 220 grain hard cast bullet. That's our number one seller. Well, it's not SAMMI compliant because SAMMI doesn't even recognize the existence of 220 grain bullets for 10mm. Dimensionally, it is standardized. It's within SAMMI spec, so it'll feed and function in guns. But the bullet is heavier than SAMMI recognizes. And I'm telling you, there's a real advantage to a 220 grain bullet as a deep penetrating bullet on big game. I'll give you another example. 45 ACP. Of all of the 45 ACP loads that Buffalo Bore makes, and there must be, 10 different loads, our top selling 45 ACP plus P load uses a 255 grain hard cast bullet. Well, guess what? the last time I checked SAAMI, the heaviest bullet they recognized was the good old standard military ball load of 230 grains. They don't even recognize a 255 grain bullet. Yet that load is our top selling 45 ACP load. And I can give you a lot of examples of this. There's a ton of them. And I would say that probably 30% of the buffalo bore products that we make are not SAMMI compliant. The other 70% are. And I'm pulling those percentages out of my memory. I'm in Africa, as you can see. So I'm not at the factory and I'm not in my office in Idaho. And there's other problems with SAMMI. The early black powder 4570 loads were, a 405 grain bullet at 1,300 feet a second. They didn't generate much pressure because they were black powder. They might have generated, 16 to 18,000 PSI or cups, copper units of pressure. So SAMMI, for whatever reason, set the modern 4570 pressure limits at 28,000. Well, if you put those in an old trapdoor Springfield, the original 4570 rifle, which was a military rifle, it'll ruin the action. It could even blow it to pieces, but it'll definitely ruin it. So why standardize it at 28,000? We load our real heavy lever gun 4570 ammo at 39,000 to 42,000 PSI for Marlins and Winchesters. For modern guns of a modern design, you can load at that level. And our website talks about it a ton. Well, we're exceeding SAMMI's 28,000 PSI pressure limit, which will still blow up the older guns. So why they set it at 28,000 doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We make 9mm plus P plus ammunition. SAMMI recognizes standard pressure 9mm ammo. They recognize plus P 9mm ammo, but they don't recognize plus P plus 9mm ammo, which is what I shoot in almost all of my full-size 9mm. Even here in Africa, I was able to buy a couple of cases of Winchester. I think they call it Ranger ammo. It's plus P plus. It's 127 grain jacketed hollow point plus P plus. It's not SAMMI compliant. So that's probably why you can buy it in Africa, but you can't buy it in America. At least I can't find it in America. So those are some of the problems with SAMMI. The next problem comes that America is a very litigious society. So what happens in America is that the gun manufacturers all hide behind SAMMI. If you were to call up Smith & Wesson and say, can I shoot plus P plus 9mm ammo in your model such and such? They'd say, well, stick with SAMMI. Whatever is within SAMMI specs or is SAMMI compliant, stick with SAMMI. Okay, that's because Smith & Wesson doesn't want to get sued, and that's because all the big corporations are run by attorneys. They're not run by end users. They're not run by shooters. I mean, half of these guys are accountants and attorneys. They don't even know what end of the gun the bullet comes out of. And that's just how big corporations are. So you run into this problem that in order to cover their liability, cover their ass, they just say, well, is it SAMMI compliant? If it's not SAMMI compliant, don't use it. Oh my gosh. The small ammo makers out there in America, like Buffalo Bore, make a number of things that aren't SAMMI compliant. And I'm never going to join SAMMI because they want to charge me a bunch of money to do it. And we've been in business over 30 years, and we have a huge market share, and people love our ammo. So I'm not going to pay SAMMI for the luxury of saying I belong to SAMMI. And then I'd have to limit the kind of ammo we're making, which is very, very good ammo. We have become known for our ammo without ever attending a SHOT show. We've never had a booth at SHOT. without belonging to SAMMI, without doing all these things that people say we have to do. Well, guess what? We do it because we make a good product. That's how we have the reputation we have. I mean, that's a novel concept, isn't it? Make a really good product and people will use it and tell others. Gosh, maybe I should have dumped $10 million into some kind of advertising and joining SAMMI and doing SHOT Shows. I didn't do any of that. I just make really useful ammo that is purpose designed. Each load we make is designed to do a particular job. And how do I know it works? Because I use it. I designed what I used and made it available for the public. So this little essay on SAMMI is just to help people fill in the gaps so they know why gun manufacturers say, oh, only use it if it's SAMMI compliant. Well, that's because they have attorneys and accountants running their business. They don't want to be sued. And America is super litigious. I mean, if I can go to McDonald's and order a cup of hot coffee, and if I spill it in my own lap, and then I turn around and sue McDonald's, this actually happened for those of you that aren't aware, the lady that did that won several $100,000. And that was 30 years ago, before America was as litigious as it is now. So I don't blame gun manufacturers for hiding behind SAMMI at all. I'm just pointing out to you the dynamics of why gun manufacturers hide behind SAMMI and why SAMMI limits the kind of ammo that we can make and still have it be SAMMI approved. I hope this video helps you make sense of a few things you may have run into in America in the gun industry. And God bless, and we will catch you on the next video.